Algeria's President Abdelmajid Tebboune has dissolved parliament and called for early elections. The U.S. administration of Joe Biden has expressed willingness to restore diplomatic relations with Iran and return to the Iran nuclear deal. The Venezuelan government has warned of new aggressions being plotted in Colombia to provoke destabilization in the country, while also announcing its strategies to fight against drug trafficking. Hello, welcome to From the South. I am Janet Perez Moya from the teleSUR studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune called for the dissolution of parliament and early legislative elections on Thursday as the North African nation struggled with health, political and economic crisis.
I have decided to dissolve the National People's Assembly to call for elections that are free of money, whether it comes from corruption or not, and to open the doors to young people. I decided to grant presidential pardon to about 30 people for whom a decision had been given and others for whom no verdict had been reached. Between 55 and 60 people will be joining their families from this evening or tomorrow.
Zimbabwe has begun COVID-19 vaccination for frontline health workers using jabs produced by China's Sinopharm. The Zimbabwean government started rolling out its COVID-19 inoculation program following the arrival of the first batch of vaccines donated by the Chinese government. Zimbabwean Vice President and Minister of Health and Child Care, Constantino Chingwega, was the first to receive the jab along with the frontline health workers as the country grapples a second wave of the infections. The government has allocated $100 million for the purchase of COVID-19 vaccines and aimed to vaccinate 60% of population free of charge.
My presence here today with some Ministry of Health officials, including my deputy, is to exhibit the government's confidence in the Sinopharm vaccine. I have received my COVID-19 vaccine jab together with my deputy minister and my staff. Therefore, I urge all Zimbabweans to be vaccinated at their nearest health centers. It is important.
El Salvador began vaccination against COVID-19 after receiving the first batch of 20,000 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine. The first to be vaccinated will be the frontline medical personnel in charge of tackling the pandemic. They will be followed by other hospital workers and then firefighters, police, soldiers, and people with underlying illness. The vaccine arrived from India. The next batch of 90,000 AstraZeneca doses will arrive in the next few days and is part of an order of 2 million doses that the government purchased from the British pharmaceutical company. President Nayib Bukele said that 55,000 doses of the Pfizer vaccine supplied by the World Health Organization's COVAX initiative will arrive in the first half of March. The World Health Organization said vaccines equity is slowly becoming reality across the world as richest nations are stepping up to deliver vaccines to developing countries.
The world is moving closer to delivering the promise of vaccine equity. Vaccine equity will be on the agenda at both the G7 leaders meeting and the Munich Security Conference tomorrow. Tomorrow, WHO will also launch a new declaration focused on vaccine equity, and I have been encouraged by the support we have received from hundreds of organizations and thousands of people.
Thousands of people in Myanmar's largest city marched and protested against February 1st military takeover. Protesters flocked to Yangon's busy intersection Friday, demanding the release of ousted leader Aung San Suu Kyi and that the democratically elected government be restored. The junta said that it took over because elections last November were tainted by voting irregularities, adding that it will hold new elections in a year's time. Protests have continued, even the increase of pressures on protests threatened the takeover, including violently breaking up some demonstrations and blocking internet access. Thai protesters held a rally on Friday outside the parliament building, where Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha and 9 members of his cabinet are facing the 4th day of the censure debate. The Prime Minister and cabinet members are accused of mismanaging the economy, bungling the provisions of COVID-19 vaccines, abusing human rights and corruption. About 200 protesters gathered on the street outside Parliament in Bangkok. Demonstrators denounced the performance of the government on various issues and demand change. It is the second no-confidence debate that Prayut's government has faced since taking office in July 2019. Activists have vowed to continue their protests on Saturday to pressure members of parliament to vote against the government.
The achievement of the censure debate this time is to get the involvement from the people outside the parliament, right? I would like the people from outside across the country know the critical issue we are trying to debate in the parliament and help us, support us to keep monitoring, to keep investigating the government, to prevent the failure, to prevent the damage from the government policy. This is our expectation.
We will take a short break. Stay with us.
A review of the world news that investigates, incites analysis and induces criticism, because every event has a context.
Pusimos el punto net.
Dot in the I. Saturday, only on teleSUR.
Welcome back. The U.S. government said Thursday that it was willing to meet with Iran and renounce former President Donald Trump's claims to impose new sanctions against the country at the United Nations, representing a possible opening to push forward nuclear diplomacy. During his term in office, Trump withdrew the United States from the Iran nuclear deal and reimposed broad sanctions to further pressure the country. But President Joe Biden supports a return to diplomacy, arguing that the 2015 deal was effective in reducing Tehran's nuclear program. Iran has insisted that the United States must first lift the sanctions before returning to full compliance with the 2015 agreement, which will reverse the step took in the protest of Trump's measures and the failure of other signatories to deal with the comply with their obligations. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez said its government will oppose all forms of violence following the third night of violent protests over the jailing of a rapper for his controversial tweets.
There is no exception to this rule. There is no cause or place or situation that can justify the use of violence. None. Precisely because violence is not a freedom, it is an attack on the freedom of others. Violence is an attack on democracy, and as consequence, Spain's government will face any kind of violence and will guarantee the security of citizens. Democracy protects the freedom to demonstrate, freedom of expression, even the expression of more despicable, absurd thoughts. But democracy will never protect violence. Violence is against democracy.
China's foreign minister said the country is unveiling of details about the border clash in Galwan Valley between Chinese and Indian frontier troops last June is intended to facilitate people's understanding of the facts and truths.
Today's peace has been hard-earned. Every hero and martyr deserves to be remembered and respected. We will remember them forever. The motherland will not forget them. The people will not forget them. Meanwhile, I would like to emphasize that China's position on the settlement of the border issue is consistent. We are always committed to properly resolving disputes through dialogue to maintain peace and stability in the border areas. China wishes to put the boundary issue in an appropriate place with India, in order that the two sides can make joint efforts to ensure peace and stability in the border areas so as to promote the long-term, healthy and stable development of bilateral relations, which accords with the common interests of both peoples.
Heavy snow hit Washington, D.C. on Thursday, disrupting public functions of the U.S. capital city. D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser declared snow emergency ahead of the severe weather, requiring all public schools to disunline and non-key department staff of the municipal government to work from home. The weather forced the temporary closure of COVID-19 testing and vaccination sites. A series of winter storms have affected many parts of the United States over the past few days, causing at least 37 deaths in Texas, the worst hit state. The storm cut the power supply to nearly 2.7 million families. Authorities managed to restore power supply for most of them, but there are still 447,000 families living without power. Cuba is expanding the sources of employment. Our correspondent in Havana, Fabiola Lopez, has the story.
The Vice Prime Minister of the island explained on local television that the deep transformation is not limited only to the change of one list of allowed activities by another. The perfection is much wider and comprehensive, and includes the tax system and the improvement of the procedures to authorize private initiative.
There's a lot of talent in Cuba. There are many people with the capacity of contributing. I believe that if we can all join the force that Cubans have to go forward to search for solutions to problems, to reduce imports and search for domestic solutions, to articulate a productive chain between the different economic actors, if we can take advantage of all those potentialities that the country has, and keeping with a path of social and economic development, it would be very positive. It is safe to say that the non-state and self-employed sectors are in the capacity and conditions to make a favorable contribution to this strategy.
This academic explained that reality shows that non-state forms of ownership are necessary in order to have a more prosperous society and, above all, a society that can be better inserted in the world.
I respect the opinions of those things this distance our society from socialism's bottom-up to now history does not confirm that our reality either, and the successful examples of countries that want to build socialism in this moment. We always use China as an example, or Vietnam. They have taken this path. Obviously, Cuba does not have to repeat the exact model. It does not have to be like that, but definitely life is more than a theory, and theory also demonstrated that in a sector that Cuba needs, and that our road to the socialism we want needed. There are things I don't like. For example, I'm not satisfied with the fact that there is still a group of forbidden activities that are not allowed. I believe that it needs profound things how to promote activities that are professional and that requires a higher qualification.
According to official numbers, currently there are more than 600,000 employed in the private sector in Cuba, 13% of the employed force on the island. The authorities warn that this is an important step for the increase of employment in the country in times where working is not an option, but a need, just when they try to have the distribution of wealth in accordance with the social principle that the one who contributes the most and works more should earn more.
Fabiola Lopez, teleSUR, La Habana.
We will take another short break. We have more stories coming up. Stay with us.
Review of the world news that investigates, incites analysis and induces criticism, because every event has a context.
Pusimos el punto en el.
Dot in the I. Saturday, only on teleSUR. Innovation, science, the technological breakthrough and its influence in society.
Viajeros del saber, el futuro está aquí.
Atomum. Monday, only on teleSUR.
Welcome back. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro, offering an assessment for his government fight against drug trafficking, denounced Colombian authorities for their role in cocaine trafficking in the region.
Colombia produces 70% of the world's cocaine, and of that cocaine that leaves Colombia, 84% leaves through the Colombian Pacific via the Pacific Ocean by sea, loaded onto ships, submarines, and planes, floating all Central America, precisely from Panama to Mexico, with drugs. What I am saying is the pure and absolute truth, proven and verifiable. Venezuela, meanwhile, as you can see, is the victim of 8% of that drug traffic. 8% of the drug trafficking passes or attempts to pass through some routes in Venezuela.
President Maduro pointed out that following the expulsion of agents of the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration from Venezuela, seizures of prohibited substance increased by 40% between 2005 and 2010.
Within the 1999 to 2004 period, with the participation of the DEA, only 209 tons were seized. And in the first 5-year period, from 2005 to 2010, having expelled the DEA, drug seizures increased by 44%, that is to say, 374 tons.
Venezuelan authorities offered a statement this Thursday in response to the systematic aggressions of the Colombian government of Iván Duque against the country. Defense Minister Vladimir Padrino Lopez stated that after carrying out several evaluations, the High Command of the Armed Force determined that systematic attacks on the democratic system of the country are being plotted in Colombia. The President of the National Assembly, Jorge Rodriguez, rejected the acts of aggression by the Iván Duque government against the people of Venezuela. The authorities reiterate that the attacks from Colombia seek to provoke political and economic destabilization and violate the human rights of the Venezuelan population.
Colombia has become a huge military camp, acting under the leadership of pseudo president, who is unfit to hold the post of president, who is unfit to wear the tricolor sash across his chest, who, under his sponsorship, protection, organization, and financing, has committed crimes against our homeland, which we consider acts of war.
The defense minister also denounced before the international community the despicable acts of Colombian intelligence agents on attempting to bribe Venezuelan officials.
We take this opportunity to denounce before the international community the despicable acts of the National Intelligence Directorate of Colombia, which in collaboration with the CIA and the DEA attempts to bribe our military professionals to obtain information on our operational preparedness, as well as to steal or disable strategic weapons, equipment, supplies, and spare parts.
The city of Cape is ready to play host to the One People International Film Festival. Organizers say everything is on track and submissions are pouring in, with about 2 months to go.
A picture-perfect setting for the first One People International Film Festival. The city is one of the world's premier film and tourism destinations, and these industries have greatly suffered as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and lockdown. This film festival will bring a much-needed kickstart to the industry. The festival will be held from the 26th of April to the 2nd of May and will include important historic days such as South Africa's Freedom Day on the 27th of April and May Day on the 1st of May, with an emphasis on showcasing films that celebrate diversity and inclusion. The organizers say the festival's exquisite array of narrative, documentary, and animated films will contribute in uniting communities from across the globe. The City of Cape Town Mayor Alderman Dan Plato says they welcome the idea of such a festival.
A festival of an international kind of a standard. You call it already, it will be one of the biggest in Africa. Any municipality would love to be part and parcel of something like that and to support it because it always attracts investors, it attracts film tourists to your country. It means it is feed in your country or in your city, and it means it is money that's been spent. Looking at COVID, how COVID hit our economy, every envoy after COVID is over, the envoys, people that want to get out of their countries and visit South Africa and Cape Town, we will not say no to that.
The film industry contributes around 3.5 billion rand a year to the local economy, and the city hopes that it will continue to grow during and post the COVID-19 pandemic. The festival aims to create an intimate and collaborative space for filmmakers, holding a range of events from masterclasses to red carpet premieres and plenty of co-production networking opportunities. For teleSUR News in Cape Town, I'm Stephen Taylor.
We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For telesur English, I am Janet Perez Moya. Thank you for watching.
Innovation, science, the technological breakthrough, and its influence in society.
Viajeros del saber, el futuro está aquí.
Atomy. Monday, only on teleSUR.
为了保持身体健康，我冥想。
Para mantenerme saludable, yo corro.
To keep myself healthy, I study.
Για να διατηρηθώ υγιής, τρέφομαι σωστά.
Para mantenerme saludable, yo bailo.
Para mantenerme saludable, yo purifico mi espíritu a través del cuerpo. ¿Y tú?
Guide your body. Tuesdays, only on teleSUR.
Acompañamos a los pueblos que resisten en cada una de sus luchas.
Somos esa ventana que se abre para visibilizarlos entre fronteras.
Thursdays, only on teleSUR.
¿Qué tal? Sean todos muy bienvenidos a Vidas. Hay lugares donde el arte se unifica con el orgullo de los pueblos. Y esos lugares están llenos de colores, alegría, pasión, tradiciones, arraigo, valor y entrega.
Real life